Today is election day in the United States, and 2020 being what it has been thus far, there's a whole lot of anxiety and uncertainty hanging in the air. And that's something that we all should acknowledge and realize is there in each of us. But while acknowledging the reality of that uncertainty, we as Christians also need to really take a step back and look and focus on those things that are vitally important for us. And in doing so, we perhaps can even look at this election and ultimately, at the end of the day, whether we know who is elected as the next president of the United States or not, we can look and say that Christ is still the victor. That's not always easy, but it's something that we are called to do. And over the last few weeks, our women's teaching on Wednesday mornings has been dealing with the book All Is Well by Dr. Rossi. Now, Dr. Rossi was a retreat speaker here just a couple of years ago, and he actually talked a little bit about this book. And in a particular chapter where he's talking about ambiguity and he's talking about uncertainty and dealing with uncertainty, he gives some very concrete advice on how we should think in order to be able to withstand in periods of time of uncertainty. And I think as we are facing this election and facing uncertainty ahead of what's going to happen no matter who wins, there's lots of uncertainty and anxiety that is out there. But Dr. Rossi says that we should think about three things in particular in order to be able to say, all is well. And that statement, all is well, is a very concrete statement that Dr. Rossi takes from Julian of Norwich, who says, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well, but Dr. Rossi is willing to say, all is, in fact, well. In order for us to get there, in those ambiguities, Dr. Rossi says that we should have three things on our minds. First of all, we should know that we don't know. We don't know. The second thing we should do is know that God knows, that Christ knows. The third thing that we should do is do our best to try to trust Him. Now, that first one, I know I don't know, that's a hard one. We might be willing to admit that we don't know certain things, but it's very hard for us as in our desire to control so many different situations for us to actually say, I know that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and to be able to be freed by that thought. Because the idea is, instead of our working so unbelievably hard to be able to understand and be able to put it all together, that we can actually freely say, I don't know what's going to happen. And in our society where people are paid lots of money to poll and to survey and to try to figure out everything that's going to happen in any given at any given time, the reality is, as much as they think they know, even they don't know. And so the first thing, and something that is extraordinarily freeing, is for us to be able to say, I know I don't know. And secondly, to say, but I know God knows. God exists out of time. And so He sees the entirety of human history as if He were in a helicopter looking down upon it all, even at one particular moment. He knows, God knows everything that can and will happen. Knowing doesn't mean that He changes and takes away our free will. In fact, He never overwhelms our free will. He allows for us to act and to react and to respond in our own way that we choose, because He is the God of love, and by loving us, He never overwhelms and overdoes our free will. But at the same time, by not overcoming our free will, He still knows, and Christ even says that He knows even the hairs on our head. He knows who we are even from our mother's womb. And so He knows it all, and He has seen the entirety of the story, and He knows, in fact, most importantly, how that story ends. He knows that it ends in victory. And so we can look and say, I know I don't know, and then with confidence we can say, but I know God knows. And that's where we're able to attempt to do the third thing, to try and trust Him. Now, I love that Dr. Rossi doesn't say, and trust Him. He actually says, and try to trust Him, because he's recognizing the genuine struggle and difficulty that it is to trust Christ. Because while we might know and understand and have faith and hope that the last word, the end of the story, is victory, and is that victory that is promised to us in Christ, we still have to go through the suffering. We still have to go through the uncertainty. We still have to go through the day-to-day slog of this life. And so we do the best that we can to try and trust him. St. Paul says, all things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. That's a wonderful verse for us to be able to attempt to fall back on as we try to trust in God. We know we don't know. We know that God knows, and we do our best to try and trust him. So brothers and sisters, today is election day. Whether we know who is elected or not, remember, all is well. The ultimate victory has been won in Christ. And no matter who wins this election, we know who ultimately wins, and that is Christ. And in that, we need to keep our hope. So as much as we can, embrace our lack of control. Know we don't know. Know that God knows, and trust him to work all things together for the good. Trust him to lead us ultimately in our salvation. Trust him to love us, to care for us, to have mercy on us, and to guide us to his kingdom.